you.
Good luck, guys.
Oh no.
All right, let's start. So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to AMAT 199 undergraduate seminar. So, some of my students will present their research paper, okay? And these research paper are actually the basis of their special problem or thesis for this semester. For the first presentation, it will be introduced by Mr. Gio Favorito. Gio.
Um, our very first presenter is Mary Joyce Funtanar. She is BS Applied Math, major in Quantitative Management and Decisions Science faculty. Um, she is presenting mm, she is presenting faculty to course assignment under uh, assignment using integer programming model. Okay. Um,
Hi, thank you, Gio, for your introduction. So, I'm Mary Joyce Funtanar. Today, I'm going to show you how we can give importance to the faculty to course allocation. Since if a department is considering the students' demand, then they should also consider the faculty members' needs. So, this study, entitled Faculty to Course Assignment Using Integer Programming Model, with authors Monica C. Torres, Kayla S. Villegas, Maika Krishna A. Gavina, and this study want to solve a problem, the faculty course problem. Let's now start. So the introduction is consist of the statement of the problem, objectives of the study, and the scope of limitations, and the scope and limitations will be shown on the next slides. Methodology, the research model, and how the model was formulated. Next is the results and discussion. So after formulating the model, how can we validate the model? So what was the outcome? conclusion and recommendation, which is maybe this would be a great help for the future research for some improvements. And hearing the title of the presentation, we knew this is all about faculty to course assignment. But what is the meaning of faculty to course assignment? It is the assignment of faculty members to courses to be offered in that semester or academic year. This may also be one of the dilemmas of some universities. Not hindi lang dito sa Philippines, baka pati sa ibang bansa, ganun. So, dahil sa large number of courses, different preferences of the faculty members, and some conflicting objectives kung paano ba nila ma-handle yung courses. Next is, there is a study written by Breslau. He used a linear programming model to maximize the preferences of the faculty members, but not just maximizing, it also satisfied the policies of the department, yung mga number ng teaching loads, ganun. So in this study, the focus was on the preferences of the faculty members in the math division in UPLB. So why preferences of the faculty members? Since they can have some commitments, responsibilities in academic, their research, they also need time for that commitments. Kaya preference din dahil kapag 'di ba kunyari gusto mo tong courses na 'to kasi diyan ka may talent, diyan ka passionate talaga. So, mabibigay mo yung lahat ng effort mo para ma-deliver mo ng maayos yung lesson sa mga students. So, let's now move on to what are we going to solve in this study. So, the researchers wanted to solve using a binary integer programming model to solve for the optimal faculty scheduling. Binary means 0, 1. So, 0, 1 integer programming yung nagamit dito. Then, ibig sabihin lang nun ay yung variables na ginamit ay binary, 0 o 1. So, by solving for this, we want to achieve these objectives. First, to construct a mathematical model for the scheduling of the faculty to courses. So, paano natin siya magkakaroon ng model ay kailangan nga natin ng binary integer programming para maka-formulate tayo ng model. Next is to have optimal assignments for the development of tabular schedules. And then, these are the scope and limitations. Since the study considered the faculty members and courses in Math Division sa UP Los Baños, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And they also considered the last first semester academic year 2014 to 2015 only. And since meron na nung schedule yung mga faculty members available na. So yung preference weights ay binase na lang din dun sa schedule nung semester na yon. So kung ano yung handle nung faculty na yon, yun na din yung preferred niya sa study lang na ito. So ibig sabihin ay hindi na muna nag-gather ng data yung researchers. So dun sila nagbase. So some courses were not considered in the study. Sabihin like subjects like NSTP1, NSTP2, and other offered courses kung meron man sa ibang campus. And then, other loads were also not considered, like administration, research, and other study loads ng mga faculty members. And the formulated objective function was to maximize Z. And here, these are the binary variables na kapag yung instructor na to ay assigned sa subject na to, 1 siya. Kaya IS, instructor and subject. And then dito naman para sa professor, 1 or 0 din. So, pinaghiwalay yung instructor at professor dahil may iba't ibang courses na pwede nilang ma-handle. Ayun. Tapos yung may new instructor, tapos may new professors, yun, may different types. And we have here the preference weights. V for professor then to subject S. Then instructor to subject S. So itong summation na to ay for professor 1 to N2 yung last na professor. So itong S is equal to 1 to T kung ilang subjects courses. And then yon multiply the preference weight and the binary variable. And then same lang for the instructors. And for solving this objective function, the model, syempre we need the constraints. So subject to number 1 and 2 equations are the same. They restrict the model to the faculty members cannot handle courses with same time slots. Ibig sabihin nito ay kapag inad natin yung binary niya sa lahat ng subjects na may same time slot or same day, sa same day, dapat 1 lang. Equivalent siya sa 1 or wala. Ito ay for instructors, ito ay professors. So next is they're restricted to total number of classes assigned ay equal siya sa total number of classes offered para distributed talaga lahat. So dapat equal siya sa number of classes. Next, subject to team teaching is not allowed. So kapag na-handle na ni instructor yung subject, hindi na dapat ma-handle ni professor. So 1 plus 0, 1. Yun. And then the next is instructors are not allowed to teach GE courses, graduate courses. Meron pang undergraduate seminar, practicum, special courses, and majority of the major courses. Since professors lang yung allowed na magturo ng ganun. So this is the equation for that. And for all S, yung subjects lang din na mga nabanggit ko. Next is Type 1 instructors are not allowed to handle lecture classes, meaning we are going to equate it to 0 yung sa binary ng mga type 1 instructors sa subjects na lecture classes, yung classes na lecture kasi since bawal nga niyang i-handle yun. Ayun. And alpha, last number lang siya ng type 1 instructor. And then this one, instructors and new professors are assigned as lecture assistants. So, i-zero lang natin siya sa professors na hindi baguhan. Kasi lecture assistants sila. So, for the type 1 instructors, yung ibang instructors, at new professors lang. So, next is the assistant, associate, and full professors may handle only one section of SP courses in a program. So, program means yung mathematics, applied mathematics, MST, yun. Itong C51 ay yung number lang din ng SP courses, yung special problems na course. And then, to balance the allocation of the faculty to course, their teaching loads have minimum and maximum. For the instructors, for all I, 6 units ang minimum, maximum ay 12 units. And for the professor, this one, 6 units and a maximum of 18 units. And ito pala ay yung number of units lang ng subject. Tapos ito yung subjects, yung binary, kung tinuturo niya or hindi. Then, add lang yung lahat ng courses. Lastly, if a faculty member will handle a 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. class, Then, bawal na siya mag-handle ng 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. class and vice versa. Since gusto natin na, isa sa constraint natin ay ma-minimize yung gaps between ng classes nung faculty para sa iba niyang work, sa iba niyang commitments. And then kapag kunyari nagta-travel siya ng malayo, para isahan niya na yung araw niya ay nandun na lahat ng tuturo niya, ganun. So, the model was applied to the faculty workload for the first semester academic year 2014 to 2015. And the codes, this model was coded and programmed using the WUSEC. It is a standalone executable with, pinagsama na siya na text editor and linear and integer programming solver. And ayon, the preference of a faculty member is a value ranging from 0 to 1. Yung study na to sa first sem faculty load, ayun lang din yung ginawa ng value. So, dun natin nilagay yung 0 to 1. Ibig sabihin kung ano yung mas preferred niya, dun mas mataas yung value, pero hindi lalagpas ng 1. Ayun. And then, for the results, the generated schedules ay same lang sa original schedules, almost the same, since may nabago dahil nga naglagay tayo ng close gaps na minimize natin yung courses, yung time ng courses, and then hindi na-assign yung ibang prof dun sa preferred subject. Yung preferred subject, di ba yun yung yung i-handle na nila ng SEM na yun, dun tayo nagbase. So, may mga binigay siya sa ibang faculty members para ma-distribute talaga yung courses. So, the division's workload policies were attained. And to conclude, for us to solve the optimal faculty scheduling, the study formulated binary integer programming model. And the model considers the course preferences of the faculty members and schedules with small gaps. Ayun, na-compromise niya yung preference at small gaps. And then, preferences and the policies were acquired. Next, these are for some improvements to the next researchers or future research. So, working days of the faculty members ay pwedeng makonsider na i-minimize mo lang yung working days nung faculty member ng 3 araw, 4 na araw. Ganun, depende na lang din sa department. And then, number of courses per day, iyon, pwede mo din siyang gawa ng constraint. And preferred units for professors with other loads. So, dito, yung sa professors kasi, di ba yung iba may administration, ganon, yung nabanggit ko kanina. So, pwede siyang isama dun sa paggawa ng model para para yung ma-generate na model ay swak talaga dun sakto talaga sa load nung professor. And then, maximize the faculty member skills. Hindi lang preferences, pwede mong consider yung skills nila. Kunyari, sa year na to, hindi pa nila to naaaral, pero next year, yung sa sunod na year ay na-take na nila yon yung research na yon. So, mas may skills na sila sa course na yon. And then, base din sa pag-evaluate ng students sa professor, pwede din na, itong prof na to, magaling siya sa ganitong ganyan. And it also may be applied to other divisions or departments sa university or other schools. Sadyang kailangan mo lang i-depend yung model mo sa mga constraints nila, mga restrictions nila sa university nila. And for that, thank you for listening. Here are my references of the study. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary Joyce Fontanar, for the presentation. Meron bang tanong yung sa mga audience natin? Hmm. Okay, ako muna mag-i-start ng tanong. Okay. Yung tanong ko, where did they get the constraints? Parang natanong lang ba sa department o saan ba nagbe-base yung study?
In this study, base dun sa study na nabasa ko ito, ay nagbase sila sa policies ng university mismo, ng UPLB para and then yung pagkabase nila doon ng policies ay sinama na nila siya sa assumptions. Hindi ko lang nalagay din yung iba dito sa assumptions. Yun po.
Okay. May tanong si Serica, if pwede daw bang idagdag yung preferred room nila sa constraints?
Yes. Depende kapag may list tayo nung classrooms. Pero baka hindi na binary integer yung gamitin natin since yung iba gagawin na nating objective kasi napakarami na ng constraints. Ayun lang.
Okay. Kung wala nang tanong, move on na tayo sa next present moderator para i-introduce yung presenter.
So good afternoon once again. For our second presenter, he is Jome Philip Ermino, a BS Mathematics student majoring in analysis. And for his presentation, it is titled Advanced Tests for Convergence. So Ms. Jome, if you would share your presentation now.
So, good afternoon, everyone. Wait, I will just. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Philip, and I will present my the basis paper of my special problem entitled "Advanced Test for Convergence" by Sarah Fix. So this convergence test is for the infinite series of functions. So first, some introduction, the background of the study. Um, so in the paper, the author introduced infinite series by providing some history where it began or how it started, and um, she said that it started when Archimedes used the first summation of an infinite series to find the area under an arc of curve. Um, an infinite series, it is an important piece of an important piece of understanding an infinite series is by recognizing the connection between sequences and series. And this was given by Sarah Fix by providing some examples and proving this. So next we will introduce some common and easy to understand convergence tests used by Sarah Fix to better understand the advanced convergence test that we will discuss later. So first, um, the ratio test. So the ratio test states that given an infinite series of non-zero terms and a limit, say L, where it is assumed that the limit exists, then if the value of L is between 0 to 1, closed at 0, then the series converges. And if L is between 1 and infinity, the series diverges. And if L is equal to 1, then the test is inconclusive and the series may either converge or diverge. And another one would be the root test. Given an infinite series of real numbers and letting rho be the limit, when the limit exists, then if the limit is between 0 to 1, close at 0, the limit, the series convergence, and if the limit is between 1 to infinity, the series diverges. And also, if the limit is equal to 1, then the test is inconclusive and the series may either converge or diverge. So these are the these are some convergence tests that was introduced in the paper to better understand the advanced test that we will talk about later. And these are actually some basis for the test for some advanced convergence test. And also the the author also introduced that the root test is stronger than the ratio test. Um, by stronger, the author means that there are strengths in test, and this strengths refers to the ability to yield a result. And this is proven by the author by showing that the stronger test implies that the weaker test also yield a result, and also there must exist a case where the stronger convergence test work and the weaker test does not. Um, she also discussed, as I've said earlier, that um, an important piece of understanding infinite series by recognizing the connection between sequences and series. So she discussed about sequences and series also and some properties. And some properties like if the sequence of partial sums of an infinite series of positive terms is bounded, then the series converges. And she gave some examples to prove these cases. Um, and with these preliminaries and introduction of some basic tests and infinite series, um, we will proceed to the advanced test, which are in this case Commerce and Rabe's test. Oh. First, let me state the statement of the problem. So a mathematical series representation is a very useful tool for describing images or for solving approximating the solutions to imaging problems, and infinite series is useful in integration and differential equations in the field of mathematics. and in a wide range of fields such as physics, engineering, chemistry, computer science, and finance. So, ang infinite series is ginagamit more on in different fields nga. Medyo wide yung range niya na ginagamit talaga siya sa iba't ibang bagay, application sa iba't ibang bagay. So in this paper, the author discussed some advanced tests for convergence for infinite series, such as I've said, Kummer's and Rabi's test, and proved both tests as well as apply them to some examples and make a connection to one of our better known tests, which is the ratio and the root test. So the objectives of the study, in this study, the author aimed to do the following. Write the proof of the advanced test for convergence, such as Kummer's test and Rabi's test, and provide examples and illustrations of these tests. So there's a scope and limitation of the study. So infinite series can also be in the sense of complex numbers. However, in this paper, the author focused on infinite series in the set of real numbers. So we will proceed to the main result, which is the advanced convergence test, which is Kummer's and Rabi's test. So Kummer's test states that given a series of positive terms and a sequence of positive constants and a limit L as shown here, where it is assumed that it exists, then if the limit is greater than 0, the series converges. And if the limit is less than 0, and the summation of 1 over b sub n as n goes from 1 to infinity diverges, then the series diverges. Um, Also, if L is equal to 0, the test would be inconclusive and may either diverge or converge. Another test would be Rabi's test. Let me introduce first this. So given a series with positive terms and assume that the limit exists, then if the limit is greater than 1, the series converges. And if the limit is less than 1, the series diverges. And if the limit is equal to 1, the series may either converge or diverge. And so the test would be inconclusive. So after introducing this test, this advanced test, and proving them and giving some examples, she also introduced a corollary of Rabi's test, where in general, when the limit is greater than 0, the sequence, the set containing a sub n, converges to 0. So, ano nga ba itong mga to? So, yung Rabi's test is a specific case, is just a specific case of Kummer's test associated with the sequence b sub n, which is equal to 1. So, the set containing b sub n, which is equal to the set containing 1. And Kummer's test is a generalization of Rabi's test. Bakit nga ba natin ginagawa to? Kasi yung mga basic test like the ratio and the root test, they are unable to yield the result often times. So we are going to use these advanced tests to find those results. Also, in conclusion, in this paper, the author was able to show some very interesting results involving infinite series and their partial sums, as well as draw some connections between series and sequences. So the author introduced two advanced tests of convergence and demonstrated their usefulness as well as their applications and relationships to one another, and these are Kummer's and Rabi's test. And the study of infinite series and test of convergence is not only extensive, but it is intriguing and beautiful. So that's all. Thank you. So here's some references of the paper.
Thank you for that presentation. If anyone has any question, you can type it sa may YouTube dun sa live sa may comments. We have one from Serica Jackla again. Sabi niya, ano daw yung pwede pang other real life applications na kung saan magagamit yung present mo ngayon?
Okay, so sino ba unahin ko? Si Miss Jerica. So yung real life application niya is mostly on the tawag dito. Um ano nga to? So they are useful in different fields like physics, engineering, yung paghahanap ng mga differential equations and integrations, tsaka sa pag-approximate ng solutions na kinakailangan para dun sa mga ginagamit natin ngayon. Ayun, sorry po, naka-off pala yung video ko.
Thank you. And then Sir Jonathan Mamplata has a question. Why are these series considered advanced?
So this series are considered advanced kasi yung nanggaling sila sa mga basic test na pinaka-basic na nagiging basis sila, tapos parang mas nagiging wide yung range nung hinahanap na kinakailangan na result para mahanap natin, kasi yung sa mga basic na test natin is hindi natin makita kung 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 nagko-converge ba yung isang series or not, and by using this advanced test mas malalaman natin sila.
Thank you. A question from me naman. Although some of the tests can be stronger than the other, like yung sabi mo nga nung sa may start is the root test is stronger than the ratio test. What are the disadvantages of using the weaker the test, because maybe some factors or parameters might be much more applicable to the other test than the stronger one?
Kasi yung mga weaker test may mga kasi sa may mga hindi sila nag-yield ng result. Tapos dito pumapasok yung mas stronger kumbaga na nag-yield ng result, kasi nga sinabi 'di ba na yung strength na sinasabi dito is yung ability to yield a result, and kapag hindi siya nakapag-yield ng result tapos nakapag-yield yung isa, ibig sabihin stronger yung isa.
So thank you. If there are no more questions for our next speaker, we have Mary Joyce Fontanar for the introduction. Thank you.
Hi, I'm back. I'm Mary Jess Nitonar. So now I'm going to introduce the next speaker. Her name is Serica Jakla, a BS Applied Mathematics major in Quantitative Management and Decision Science. And she is a member of the Society of Applied Mathematics of UPLB, for short SUMAP. And her Special Problems Advisor or SP Advisor is Sir Dylan Talabis, who is also part of SUMAP. So let's now listen to Serica's presentation entitled A Predictive Mathematical Study on COVID-19 Outbreak. Serica.
Hi. So thank you, Joyce. So as Joyce have mentioned, yes, I'm going to discuss a predictive mathematical study on COVID-19 outbreak. So to give you an overview of my presentation. First, we're going to talk about the introduction, kung saan i-mention ko yung full title of this research, authors, and where it was published. Then I'm going to give you a brief background of the study and some concepts that will be needing or that will be used in the whole presentation. Then we'll proceed to model formulation. This part will be a little technical. And then after simulating the generated or the developed model, we'll proceed to the discussion of the results and the conclusion of our researches. So for the introduction, the whole title of this research paper is Assessment of Lockdown Effect in Some States and Overall India, a predictive mathematical study on COVID-19 outbreak. So my presentation will circulate on the effect of lockdown specifically in India. Our authors are Tripit Sardar, who is part of the Department of Mathematics in Dinabandhu Andrews College, and S.K. Shahid Nadim and Joydev Chattopadhyay. Both are part of the Agricultural and Ecological Research Unit in Indian Statistical Institute, and of course Surav Rana, who is under the Department of Statistics in Visva Bharati University, all in India. Now, this research paper is published in Science Direct. If you guys want to look at it more, you can access it. You can access it for free using your Utmail. So to give you a brief introduction, the first confirmed case of coronavirus in India was reported on January 30 this year. So I'm not going to elaborate further on what is coronavirus because I believe that we have the basic knowledge of what it is. So after the first confirmed case on India, the local government to address and implement these rules such as social distancing to limit the large-scale population movement, public curfew. This was implemented on 22nd of March, and then their prime minister ordered a nationwide lockdown, which is the focus of our presentation. Now, our researchers focused on 5 different affected states in India, namely Maharashtra, Delhi, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Punjab. And of course, they also considered the overall India. So for this research, we have a total of 6 subjects. So two of the most important concepts that we're going to be used on this presentation, mathematical modeling is a process of creating a tractable mathematical formulation wherein it can provide insights, answers, and guidance to the originating application, which is part of the objectives of our researchers, that is to give some assessment on the lockdown in their country. So the SEER model is what our researchers used to refer their developed model. So the SEER model stands for susceptible, exposed, infected, and resistant model. And as you can see here, this is the SEER model. Okay, we will proceed to model formulation. So the model that was developed by our researchers are based on the interaction of 7 subclasses. As you guys remember the SEER model a while ago, we still have the susceptible. Since our originating application is lockdown, we will consider that they consider that in their model. Then exposed. Since in COVID-19, there are 2 types of infected, the asymptomatic and symptomatic. Then some symptomatic can be can be sent to the hospital, and we will also consider the population of those who got recovered from COVID-19. So here are the parameters that was used, the attributes of the subclasses to to make the model fit their current situation more. So I will not talk about them one by one. It's better to discuss them as they were used in the model. So here is the model without lockdown, and this is the model during lockdown or with lockdown. So first, this is the rate. I'm going to discuss the one with lockdown because it's similar to the one without lockdown. So this is the rate of change for the susceptible population. It is increased by the average recruitment rate. Also, it is increased by those who came from the population of lockdown who went out of lockdown, so they became part of the susceptible population. However, the population of susceptible is decreased by the rate of transmission, disease transmission of those who are symptomatic and asymptomatic. Here also in this ordinary differential equation, we considered, our researchers rather, considered natural deaths. And those who are from the susceptible population were required, for example, home quarantine. They were required to go on lockdown. So they are reduced or deducted from the susceptible population. Next, we're going to proceed to the lockdown population. In the lockdown population, it is increased by those who are required from the susceptible population to go on lockdown. Then, of course, we still consider the rate of natural death. And here are those who went out of lockdown. So as you can see, it's also here in the susceptible population. So for those who went out of the lockdown, will be deducted on the lockdown population, and it will result on an increase in the susceptible population. Next is the exposed population. For the exposed population, we will consider the transmission rate of the symptomatic and asymptomatic. So the increase of the people who are symptomatic and asymptomatic, in short, the increase of the people who are infected affects the number of people exposed. However, it is decreased, of course, still by those who, by the rate of natural deaths, and of course, it will, the population of the exposed will deduct if some of them will be infected, which we denote by this. So this is the rate of those who got infected. Next is the population of asymptomatic. So 1 minus k is the portion of the infected exposed people that are asymptomatic. Then minus the recovered. So gamma sub 1 are those people who got recovered. So they are deducted, or they decrease the population of asymptomatic, and still considered the factor of natural deaths. Next is the symptomatic. So in the symptomatic is similar to the asymptomatic. It's just that we considered K, since this is the other portion of the infected exposed population. Still be considered for those people who got recovered from the virus. However, it is also deducted here rather. However, it is also deducted by those who are infected and symptomatic, and then they're sent and notified in a hospital, which is cause an increase for the hospitalized population. In the hospitalized population, it is decreased by the recovered patients in the hospital, minus it is decreased by the natural death is still considered, and those who died from an other underlying disease. And the population of those who got recovered is just the summation of those who recovered asymptomatic, symptomatic, and those who are in the hospital, minus, of course, we still considered the rate of natural death. So to have a better understanding of the model, here is a flow diagram of the mathematical model of with lockdown. So this is just the model that I discussed a while ago, and it's just in a flow diagram form. Illustration rather. So in so our researcher also used some other models to support the mathematical model, because how if even if the mathematical model is efficient enough to capture the transmission dynamics, it is always smooth, and it may not replicate the fluctuation that is happening on the daily time series trend of the data. So our researchers used two statistical forecast model, namely the autoregressive integrated moving average, or also known as ARIMA, and then the trend and seasonal components, also known as TBATs. So the ARIMA is used to describe the autocorrelation of the data, and the trend and seasonal component, also known as TBATs, is used to forecast the series with complex seasonal patterns using exponential smoothing. Now, the hybrid statistical model is just a combination of the first two statistical forecast model. Our researchers use the R package forecast hybrid to solve this model. And the last model that they use to support their mathematical model is the ensemble model. In an ensemble model, it is a combination of two models that is used to create a single model. So our researchers use the model with lockdown and without lockdown to create an ensemble model. So for the estimation of basic and the effective reproduction number, R sub 0 is the basic reproduction number, and the R sub t right here is the effective reproduction number. So we now go to the discussion of the result. After our researchers simulate those model, this is their results. So in this graph, we will see that the black represents the ensemble model, the red represents the ODE model, the pink represents the statistical forecast model, and the broken line represents the observed data. So our researchers found that in Delhi and Gujarat, the best statistical forecast model to use is the ARIMA. And in Punjab, they figured that the best statistical forecast model to use is TBATS. And for the rest, like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and overall India, it is best to use the hybrid model. So the ensemble model plus the statistical model, the best statistical model for that subject, performed well in capturing the COVID-19 daily time series trend. So in the second result, this is the ensemble model forecast for the daily notified COVID-19 in India. So their current rate, they are in lockdown. So it is estimated to still the daily reported COVID-19 cases to increase. However, if you'll see the blue bar, which represent if they're going to stop the lockdown on May 17, the increase is larger than those if they have lockdown. So here's the use of the effective reproduction number. So the red bar represents the one during if they have lockdown, and the pink one represents if they have no lockdown. And then R sub t is equal to 1. It's the effective reproduction number. If the bar went, if the R sub t is less than 1, it means that it is the current situation is under control. If R sub t is less than 1, then the current situation is under control. However, if the R sub t is greater than 1, then it is not under control. So if you can see right here, for example, in Tamil Nadu, you can see that in Tamil Nadu with lockdown, it decreases, it goes beyond the R sub t equals to 1. Therefore, we can say that their current situation is under control. So for the conclusion, lockdowns are effective in those locations where a high percentage of symptomatic infection exists in the population. Mathematically shows our researchers mathematically shows the importance of large-scale COVID-19 mass testing, and they also conclude that there will be an increase of cases in most areas, and the trend of the effective reproduction number indicates if lockdown will be removed after May 17th. It was the graph that I've shown with the effective reproduction number. And they also conclude that lockdown policy is effective. They also have suggestion in the betterment of the lockdown policy in India. So perform a survey to find the percentage of symptomatic infection in different states and region. In short, they should invest on contact tracing, extensive lockdown only on location with high percentage of symptomatic infection, and provide relaxation in lockdown in other locations. This means that, for example, lockdown for 2 weeks, then 1 week there will be no lockdown. It still shows that there is a decrease on the rate of spreading of the virus. It also helps in the economic part of India, since COVID-19 really affects the economy of most countries. So this one solves also for the problem in economy. Then repeat step 2 if there is sufficient percentage of symptomatic infection. So here are my references, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you so much, Serika, for that timely presentation since ngayon na-experience natin yung coronavirus, COVID-19. So now let's entertain some questions for the audience. You can comment it below. And while waiting, I have some questions for you, Serika. Ang question lang. Since itong study na to, ayan, hello. Since itong study na to ay sa India, yung na-present mo ay from India, magagamit ba tong study na to specifically sa Philippines?
Yes, I believe that the model that they created can be used in Philippines as well as sa ibang bansa. Dun lang sa gagamit, they should be cautious sa mga parameters na gagamitin and sa data na gagamitin para mag-fit doon. So if ever meron pang mga kailangan baguhin dun sa model to fit dun sa current situation ng country na paggagamitan, they should do it.
So we have another question from YouTube, and it's from Sir Alvin Buhat. The question is, why do you think they used ARIMA model or other statistical forecast models to forecast instead of just using the DEs or compartment model?
Hi, Sir Alvin. Thank you for that question. I think that they used ARIMA model and other statistical forecast model is to support the just using um, they use the ARIMA and other statistical model to support, I think, to support the ODE or the system of differential equation that they created, since it was also stated there that it is efficient. The COVID-19 mathematical model that they developed is efficient to capture transmission dynamics. However, it may not replicate the sudden fluctuation in a daily time series data. That was the assumption of the researchers.
So we have another question for you from YouTube again, from Lopao Surel. Sorry, tama ba? Kung meron daw bang existing study na similar dyan sa na-present mo na Philippines yung setting?
I am not 100% sure, but if I'm not mistaken, hindi ko sure kung research na siya or na-publish ba siya, but I remember Sir Dromar Rabahante had interview maybe na tungkol sa lockdown effect dito sa Pilipinas. But I don't know if meron na nga talagang study. I'm not 100% sure, but there are researchers here in the Philippines who are trying also to do the same research.
Okay. So, for the last question, since yung sa model mo ay merong lockdown, hindi naka-lockdown, tapos kinonsider ay, inassume ba na yung parang sa lockdown lahat sumusunod, or kinonsider din ba sa model na yung mga hindi sumusunod sa lockdown? Ayun.
I think na yung mga lumalabas sa lockdown, yun yung mga napupunta doon sa susceptible population. And I think that the researchers assume a perfect lockdown.
Okay, thank you so much, Serica, for answering the questions and for your timely presentation. And let's now proceed to the next. Our next moderator will be Serica.
So the next presenter is Ms. Tricia Marie de Gala, a BS Mathematics student specializing in graph theory with her thesis paper entitled Cubic Harmonious Leveling of Path-Related Graphs. So Ms. Tricia.
Hi. Good afternoon. So wait. Let me. Okay. So hi, good afternoon. I'm Trisha, and I will be presenting the paper of Minnie S. Thomas and Matthew Varkey entitled Cubic Harmonious Labeling of Path-Related Graphs. So this paper was published last October 2017, and it has Minnie S. Thomas and Matthew Varkey produced a lot of papers about graph labeling. So for the outline of my presentation, we start with the preliminaries, main results, and the reference of this presentation. So some preliminaries. So to start, what is labeling? Ano nga bang labeling sa isang graph? So graph labeling is the assignment of labels traditionally represented by integers. So numbers 1, 2, 3 up to the vertices or edges or both. So pwedeng ang vertices ang i-label, pwedeng ang edge. So later you'll see what a vertex and an edge is. So or pwede rin yung both. So in this paper, Varkey and Thomas used edge labeling, which is a set of edges E to a set of integers. Set of labels or integers. So this labeling was first introduced by Alexander Rosa in his 1967 paper. So, um, in the mathematical field, medyo sobrang recent lang nung 1967 paper ni Rosa. So, expect na hindi masyadong marami pa yung labelings na alam natin kasi nga recent discovery lang siya ni Alexander Rosa. Tapos tinuloy na lang siya ng ibang mathematicians. So, for an example, the graph on your right, um, it it shows labeling of 0, 1, 3, 4, 5, and it has a vertex labeling and also an edge labeling. So, these are the labels for an example. So, bakit nga ba natin kailangan ng labeling? Graph labeling can be widely used in various fields such as computer science, engineering, urban planning, models for security systems, and even communication studies. So, hindi lang siya applicable sa in the mathematical sense. So, meron din siyang quantitative elements na pwede mo siyang magamit sa social psychology or sa communication studies. Okay, so I will present some definitions, some mathematical definitions. For the first one, what is a graph? A graph G is an ordered pair VE, the set VE, where V is a non-empty set of points called vertices, and E is a set of unordered pairs of vertices called edges. So in this illustration, the hollow circles are called the vertices. So and the lines connecting the vertices are called the edges. So for the second definition, a path, what is a path? A path is an alternating sequence of vertices and edges where no vertex is repeated. The path on n vertices is denoted by p sub n. So in this example, the path is this vertex or ikaw bahala kung saan mo magsa-start. So I'll start here in the vertex A, then this edge, then B, then this edge, then C, then this edge, then D, then this edge, then E. So that is a path on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices. So that is P sub 5. So in a path, it is not needed that all vertices can be madadaanan mo. Hindi naman need. Kasi kung madadaanan mo lahat ng vertices, so that is a special type of a path called Hamiltonian path. So hindi naman need in this study, in this paper na lahat matouch ng vertices. So for the third definition, this is a star. So what is a star? A complete bipartite graph k sub 1 n 1 comma n is called a star, and it has n plus 1 vertices and n edges. So look in this figure, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 8 vertices. So we expect that this figure has 7 edges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it satisfies the condition of the definition of a star. So this is a star. For the fourth definition, the graph P sub n and Sm is obtained from n copies of the star graph S sub m, and the path P sub n consisting of vertices u sub 1, u sub 2 up to u sub n by joining u sub j with the vertex of the jth copy of S sub m by means of an edge for all j's from 1 to n. So kumbaga in this graph, so parang itong star, you will replicate it n times. Yeah, n copies of the star graph. Then you will there is also a path. So you will join a vertex of that path, and you will join that vertex of that path to the jth copy of the star. So kumbaga, ipagsasamahin mo lang silang dalawa. So, ibig sabihin, yun na yung graph na P sub n and Sm. So, for the fifth definition, the caterpillar S of x sub 1, x sub 2 up to x sub m is obtained from the path P sub n by joining vertices x sub I to each of the ith vertex of P sub n. So, I have an illustration here. So, this is what you call a caterpillar. Okay, so for the sixth definition, so we go to the title. So what is a harmonious labeling? So a harmonious labeling is a function from the vertex set of G to the integers, to the set of integers 1, 2, 3 up to m sub 1. So m here is the number of edges, and it is called a harmonious labeling if it is injective, and it induces a bijective function f star defined by f star of e, quantity f of u plus f of v mod m, where e is uv for uv element of v of the vertex set, and e is from the edge set. So yung e dito, it's just an edge of the graph. So uv is is vertices, are vertices. So if a graph satisfies these conditions, it is called a harmonious graph. So I have an illustration here. This illustration is, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices, and the edges, look at the labeling of the edges, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So up to 4 lang kasi nga we are using a modulo here. So pag modulo, di ba parang laging m minus 1, kung ano man yung m mo, yun lagi. So that is a harmonious graph. And finally, what is a cubic harmonious graph? A NM graph G is said to be a cubic harmonious graph if there exists an injective function f from the vertex set up to the set of 1, 2, 3 m cubed plus 1, such that the induced mapping f star sub c of chg is from the edge set of G to the set of 1 cube, 2 cube, 3 cube up to m cube, defined by f star of c, f star sub c of f star of uv sub c of g is equal to f of u plus f of v mod m cube plus 1 is a bijection. So it's similar lang din dito, except na kailangan cubic yung magiging labels nung edges mo. So dapat masatisfy niya yan bago para masabi natin na cubic harmonious siya. Okay, so the second part, we go to the main results of the paper. So they presented two theorems for this paper. So the first theorem is the graph P sub n and P sub n SM is a cubic harmonious graph. So ano nga ba ang kailangan ulit pag mag-cubic harmonious? It needs that the function given is injective, and the function induced by that injective function is a bijection. So I'll just show the sketch of the proof. So the first part is, let the set u sub 1 up to u sub n be for vertices of the path p sub n, and v sub 0 j, v sub 1 j up to v sub m j be vertices of the jth copy p sub m for I think this is s sub m dapat. Anyway, so ayun. So for all j's from 1 to n. So define niya kung ano yung vertices ng graph. So these are the vertices. So u sub I from I to n, from 1 to n, v sub 0 I from I to n, from 1 to n, and v sub ij from 1 to m and 1 to n, and j from 1 to n. So the edge set, they also define the edge set. So u sub I and u sub I plus 1. So pag these are vertices, like kanina yung uv is a part of the edge set. So vertices lang din yan. Yun muna yung labels nila. So yun. U sub I plus 1, u sub I, v sub 0 I, v sub 0 j, and v sub ij. So they defined it. So for the second part of the proof, they defined a function f from the vertex set of the graph up to the set of 1, 2, mn plus 2n minus 1 quantity cube plus 1, by these. So for the different vertices here, there corresponds a different set of functions. So need for it um to para masabi na cubic harmonious siya, kailangan ito ay injective functions muna. So, yun yung sketch ng proof. And then, after that we prove that it is an injection, we proceed na kailangan yung induced mapping. This induced mapping was given in the paper, so they did not show how they got this induced mapping. But I think this is from this lang din. Kasi nga induced siya. So, ayun. So, these functions, it should be a bijection. So, it should be one-to-one and onto. So, we should prove that to prove that it is a bijection. And by proving that it is a bijection, we prove that this graph is a cubic harmonious graph. So that's the sketch of the first theorem. So for the second theorem, the caterpillar, I showed you a illustration a while ago. The caterpillar S of x sub 1, x sub 2, up to x sub m is a cubic harmonious graph for all n greater than 1. So the sketch of the proof is as follows. So you define first the vertex set V sub g. V sub g is V sub I from 1 to n, I from 1 to n. And this is a U. This is also a vertex set. So no, this is union. Union pala. This is not a U. This is union. The vertex set of, kasi nga, di ba, ang caterpillar is, wait, I'm showing you the caterpillar. So, it's a joining of vertices eh. So, join mo yung vertex ni P sub n and some U. Okay, so, sorry. Ayan. No. Sorry. Okay, wait. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the edge set, you will also combine the edges. So, union din siya ng edges. So, yeah. So, for the second part, again, the function must be injective. So, the function is defined as the vertex set of G up to the set of 1, 2, 3 up to the quantity m plus n minus 1 cube plus 1. So that is the function, and we must show that it is an injection. So okay, so for the last part, so after we show that it is an injection, we now show that the induced edge mapping of that function is a bijection. So again, we show that it is the function is an injection, and the edge mapping is induced edge mapping of that function is a bijection. So if we prove that that things, so we now say that the graph is cubic harmonious. So ayun lang. So yun lang yung nasabi dun sa paper. So ayun, for the reference, this is the DOI of the paper. And yeah. So, thank you.
So thank you, Miss Trisha. So now we will be open for questions regarding the presentation of Miss Trisha. So do we have any questions? So let me ask a question since wala akong makita. May iba pa bang labelings bukod sa harmonious?
Yes, meron pang ibang klase ng labelings aside sa harmonious. Merong graceful labeling, merong graph coloring, merong lucky labeling. yeah, edge graceful labeling, and for to name a few. So hindi pa siya ganun karami kasi nga hindi pa siya it was recently discovered nga lang the art of the art of labeling graphs. So hindi pa siya ganun karami. So marami pang undergoing studies about labeling graphs, labeling graphs, and yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tricia. Next, a question from Sir Mamplata. Do you have a list of family of graphs that are cubic harmonious?
Yes. Wait. The caterpillar is cubic harmonious. Also, a comb. A comb is a cubic harmonious. So as far as I know, sir, that is the only graphs that I know that are cubic harmonious.
Okay. Next, for the next question from Miss Sarika Jakla, may paraan ba na mai-improve ba ang research na ito ng mga future researchers?
Yes, meron. So depende kasi sa dun sa sinet mong function yung magiging label mo. So may functions na mas madali mong makukuha yung labeling. May functions na mahihirapan ka makuha yung labeling. So, yung SP ko ngayon is I need to show an alternative labeling using the formula given. So, kung makaka-come up ako nun, so pwedeng yun yung mas madaling labeling. Pwedeng hindi. So, grounds for research talaga yung papers na ginagawa ni Varky and ni Thomas. So, ayun.
Okay. May additional question pala si Sir Mamplata. I'm sorry. Sir Mamplata said, I am familiar with graceful labeling because I have worked with them before. Between cubic and graceful, alin ang mas rich?
I think, sir, I think that graceful ang mas rich. Rich in what sense? Rich in... Pero many papers used graceful labeling. Based on my research, sir. Rich and family. I think it is graceful. I have yet to research about it, sir. So I'll get back to you.
So, are there any more questions? Mukhang wala na. So, thank you, Miss Trish.
Thank you.
May sabi lang sila. So, ayan. Thank you, Miss Trisha Dagala. Now, we will proceed to the next moderator to present the next presenter. Miss Serika Jack.
Hi, yes, thank you, Jerome, and thank you, Tisha, for that very great presentation and very informative one. So I'm here to introduce to you our next speaker. He is currently under the BS Applied Mathematics program, major in quantitative management and decision science, and he is currently working on his special problem with our team, and of course our SP advisor, Professor Dylan Talabis, to discuss the topic about coronavirus, the economic impact. Let's give him a warm welcome, Mr. Justin Earl Bernardo.
Thank you so much, Sekai, for the introduction. So for my presentation, siguro pause muna tayo dun sa too much theoretical kasi baka medyo na-overload na yung utak natin. So for my presentation, it's the coronavirus, the economic impact. This is presented by the United Nations Industrial na sector. And then for my presentation, I'll be first discussing the industrial production and trade na situation this 2020, April 2020 yung latest data versus the December 2019. And then the second part is the impact on firms. Ang na-interview or na-surveyed na firms are around more than 1,000, around 1,400 if I'm mistaken. And then for the last is the policies and the coping strategies. So for the uh, first part, the economic crisis caused by the outbreak of the COVID-19 is hurting economies regardless of the income level of a country. The most recent data from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, which is yung from April 2020 nga versus the December 2019, indicates that both the lower and the upper middle income countries have significantly been impacted by the COVID-19. Bali 49 countries lang yung represent, but this represents majority or around 87% of the world manufacturing value added. So ito yung countries na malaki yung impact on the manufacturing of the whole world. And then a low impact on the COVID-19 in terms of case numbers and the mortality or the death rates does not necessarily translate into a low economic impact. Even minor public health events can severely affect firms in lower income countries due to their socio-economic conditions or their vulnerability and their weak capacity to respond to crisis or their weak resilience. Moreover, in a globalized world, many countries are suffering indirect consequences from value chain. Kasi, of course, if one country is affected, there's a big possibility of the value chain being interrupted or may disruption. So, pati yung other countries na kumukuha from that country from dahil sa trade or something, naapektuhan sila and lower international demands for goods due to the widespread recession. So this figure one, represents the spread of COVID-19 around the globe. So ayun nga, the bigger the circle from a country is, the more cases there is in that country. And then for the current situation, March 2020 versus the December 2019 shows approximately 81% of countries have experienced a decrease in this industrial production of 6% on average. Bali yung industrial production nila is yung average loss nila is 6%. And then pagdating nung April 2020 versus December 2019, 1 month lang yung difference from March to April, but the industrial production fell by an average of 20%. So medyo ang laki nung for a month, ang laki nung naging difference ng decrease from 6 to 20. So it shows that there is a very heavy impact of the COVID-19 dun sa economies ng different countries. This is the comparison ng data of index of industrial production. Adjusted na rin siya in terms of seasonal effects, taken into account na siya. And then, ayun nga, as said a while ago, dun sa figure 1, a decrease in the index of industrial production does not necessarily translate into high impact in terms of health, which is shown on this next figure, figure 2. This is the relationship between decrease in industrial production and COVID-19 cases or yung death rate nung per countries. As you can see, itong nasa may baba, sa may Indonesia, ang baba nung ano niya, nung COVID-19 related deaths per 100,000 na sa population. Pero ang laki pa rin ng impact nung sa change in ano nila, industrial production. Wherein itong sa highest na death rate per 100,000 ay mas mababa yung change in industrial production niya. So it does not necessarily translate na if you have more deaths is mas malaking impact sa'yo in terms of industrial production. And then for this one, the share of countries that experienced a decrease in manufacturing varies from 55%, which is yung pharmacies or yung pharma, to 94%, which is yung motor vehicles, which is highly affected by the COVID-19. This demonstrates that the negative trend continued into April across all countries, even though some industries such as pharma seem to slightly less affected uh, more than other vulnerable countries. And then the impact on firms. All of the firms surveyed expected a decline in company profits, and half of these firms expect a drastic 50% or higher decline for the year 2020. And then 20% of the firms stated that they had to lay off employees or at least planning to cut one quarter or more of their staff due to the COVID-19. Firms in the textile, apparel, and leather industries tend to anticipate the largest plunge in profit and jobs, while firms in the chemicals, plastic, and rubber industries expect below average decrease, but still a significant decrease of more than 30%. And according to these firms that were surveyed, the two major challenges they are facing are the fall in demand and how they will pay the wages of their employees, especially the labor intensive industries such as the textile and apparel na firms. And then for the ano nga ba yung pwedeng like sagot to dun sa COVID-19 since it is heavily affecting our economies. So, using state funds allocated for COVID-19 recovery to build a more resilient healthcare systems or to reduce their dependence on imports of essential goods. This implies that the funds governments are allocating to mitigate the effects of the pandemic have become more conditional and could eventually lead to a healthier, more resilient, and productive economy. So, ang goal is mas maging self-sustaining ang isang country para mas maging less vulnerable siya and more resilient towards the upcoming future. However, this might come a long way to become reality since governments must restore their capacity to design, implement, and enforce conditionality among the recipients of the financial support. So dito na pumapasok yung policies and ano yung magagawa ng government to enforce and apply these policies on the different aspects or factors dun sa within the country. So for the current international policies and measures to support manufacturing, ito yung mga na-apply na currently ng mga different countries. So yung policy areas ay yung safeguarding continued manufacturing, mobilizing manufacturing towards critical supplies, and supporting post-crisis manufacturing growth. Dito rin pumapasok yung mga OR or QMDS measures, especially dun sa safeguarding continued manufacturing. There is ensuring continued supply of production inputs and addressing supply chain disruptions. So paano mas magiging efficient yung paggalaw-galaw ng mga supplies para hindi walang disruption or mas maging continuous yung pag-produce ng supplies, mas lalo na yung mga critical supplies na kailangan for this pandemic season. And then for dun sa in terms of the firms naman, this are the policies that governments should implement according to the firms that were surveyed, which is to reduce the tax rate or to defer tax. Siguro ano muna daw as much as there's a pandemic happening since malaki yung impact rin financially sa mga tao and sa firms. And also to reduce rent and lower utility cost. Marami pang, especially to sa Philippines, which is on lockdown pa rin, marami pa ring stores na onti pa rin yung customers na natatanggap. So, onti yung pumupunta. Example, sa restaurants, onti yung nagda-dine in. So, they're asking to reduce the rent para less na rin yung nababayaran nila kasi less na rin yung income na natatanggap nila and lower the utility costs. Also, reduce financing cost or improve loan terms. Ayun nga, maraming hirap dun sa payment of the wages nung sa employees nila. Kaya yung ibang firms, they are naglo-loan sila or maybe may existing loan na sila na binabayaran pa na medyo nahihirapan na sila dun sa pagbayad since ang laki nung impact sa shares nila currently. Optimize, and the last one is optimize exporting tax rebate service. Ay ito yung sa in terms of pag-export na nung supplies nila towards the other countries since may rebate pa rin dapat na sila natatanggap. So more on yung gusto nilang policies na that the government should implement is in terms of financial support. So more on financially talaga. So for my sources, ito nga yung sa the coronavirus, the impact, and then the United Nations elaboration. Sa yung data ay nanggaling rin mismo sa United Nations. And then, ayun, the Center for System Science at the Engineering at Johns Hopkins University and the OECD Trade in Goods Statistics. So, ayun po. Thank you. If you have any questions or clarifications, you can ask now.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much, Mr. Bernardo. Doing this type of research no, in times of a pandemic can really help us in making a decision with mathematical basis. So we have a question here in Zoom from Sir Jonathan Mamplata. Do you think our government are implementing the policies you have presented?
As far as I can see, sir, opo, they are implementing naman po since yung government natin, they're prioritizing na yung yung mga katulad nung mga nakabukas lang na businesses is yung essential lang dati. Pero medyo nagkakaproblema nga kasi alam naman natin sa government is medyo tumataas pa yung cases natin pero ang dami na nag-open. Pero in terms of dun sa gradual na opening, meron naman po silang ini-implement na policies na yung critical nga lang muna and then paunti-unti lang na nag-open yung mga businesses and firms na ano po na inaalaw nila.
Okay, thank you for that, Justine. So I have a question myself. What is the mathematical concept used in um the relationship in the decrease in industry production and COVID-19?
It was on figure 2 if I'm not mistaken, yung rate nung sa death and then the index of industrial production nila. Ang ginamit dun is yung correlation between the two factors, how they affect each other. Like if the other one increases, does the other one increase or decrease? Bali, ayun, correlation yung ginamit dun sa ano na yun, part na yun.
Thank you. So for Pico, last question, and it's from me. How has this research become a basis for your special problem?
For our SP nga, which is yung sa impact rin nung COVID-19 on different countries and different factors. Bari, gumagamit din kami ng correlation of the different factors regarding dun sa pre-pandemic and then yung during the pandemic na. Ginagamit namin yung correlation is on paano nakaka-affect yung each factor towards the other factors and paano namin magagamit yung nakukuha naming data on how the countries can recover after the pandemic and maybe have a better economy once na naka-recover na yung countries.
Thank you very much, Justin. And we'll be moving on to our next moderator.
Thank you.
To introduce our next speaker. Thank you, Justin.
So, hello. So, for the last speaker, he is a BS Mathematics student specializing in coding theory, and he will be presenting a paper entitled Hermitian Self-Dual Quasi-Abelian Codes. So, without further ado, let's welcome our last speaker, Mr. Geoffrey Emmanuel Favorito. Uh, Gio, I think your mic's on mute.
Uh, Hello. Okay. Sorry. Hello. I'm Geoffrey Favorito, and I'm presenting my thesis paper titled "Hermitian Self-Dual Quasi-Abelian Codes" by my advisor Herbert Espalines and his co-authors Sampong Jitman and Romar B. De La Cruz. And okay, let's first discuss what a code is, particularly linear codes. Okay, linear codes of length n. A linear code C of length n over a Galois field of order Q in group G is a linear subspace of Galois field order Q over oh sorry Galois field of order Q in G, where Q is a prime power and G is a finite abelian group. Bale yung linear code is yung length n bale ini-index lang niya yung Galois field of Q by elements of G ng n tuples, gano'n. So, yung 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 sa SP ko, ang specific is Q is 2, gano'n. And may tawag dun sa linear code na yun, which is binary code. Ayun. And the elements of the Galois field of F, Galois field of order Q in group G can be represented by this, where alpha sub G is an element on the Galois field of order Q. Bale, ang ano nito is para siyang vector space, ganon. And y raised to G as the basis of the Galois field on the group G. So, introduce ko naman yung H quasi-abelian codes. So, let G be a finite abelian group. So, yun yung natin, first premise. Then H such that H is a subgroup of G is an H quasi-abelian code of length L. Yung length L is kukunin natin yung index ng G and H. So, makukuha natin siya kasi nga subgroup siya ng G. So, over the group ring na field of order Q on group H, where Q is an integer. And GCD ng order of H and Q is 1. So, mahalaga tong definition na to para mag-work yung code natin. So, yung kapag C is an F Galois field of order Q ng group H module, then code C is also a H quasi-abelian code in Galois field of order Q in G. So, yung module dito is parang yung group C is parang closed siya under addition and multiplication dun sa elements ng field natin, which is yung Galois field order Q. So, ito. Yung one generator H quasi-abelian codes, bale, linear code siya na, yun nga, in-introduce natin na H quasi-abelian codes na masasabi natin na one generator siya if yung code natin is cyclic na Galois field module. So, ayan. So, introduce natin yung operation natin, which is Hermitian inner product. So, merong dalawang case kasi ng inner product, which is yung isa Euclidean and yung isa is Hermitian. So, yung dito sa paper kasi na to, ang focus natin is Hermitian. So, dun tayo So, ang assumption natin dito is dapat yung Q is equal to Q sub 0 squared. So, where Q sub 0 is a power of prime, then the Hermitian inner product of U, so U1, U2 hanggang U sub n, so ang ano natin dito is yun nga, parang vector, pwede siyang represent as vector space kasi yung Hermitian inner product is parang galing siya sa complex analysis. Alam naman natin yung complex analysis is parang yung points nun is parang pwedeng i-represent as vector space. So, i-apply natin yung ano yung operation dito. So, ayun, which is vector space din naman ito. So, and another element which is v sub 1, v sub 2 up to v sub n on our Galois field is given by ito. Yung notation natin yung vector space uv tas yung h is yung Hermitian is equal to the summation of uh, alpha sub g, beta sub g, where g is small g is in element in our group, in our in our group in our Galois field. For all u, ito yung ano natin kanina, yung na-represent natin kanina, which is yung vector spaces nga and yung basis. Then kukunin lang natin yung alpha sub g and beta sub g. Where yung yung overscore, yung nakikita natin sa beta, is the automorphism on F's Galois field of order Q defined as the mapping of alpha to alpha raised to Q sub 0. Yung automorphism, recall lang natin na siya ay parang homomorphic siya sa sarili niya. Isomorphic, sorry. Yung isomorphic. Bali yung isomorphic siya, bali yung property nun, bijective, tsaka homomorphic. Ganun. Then, yung Hermitian self-dual code, so, the code C, subset siya ng Galois field, is a Hermitian dual code if nagsasatisfy niya yung itong equation, which is yung, ayan, if the Hermitian dual code, C orthogonal of H, bali yung orthogonal H, yun yung notation natin for Hermitian self-dual code. Then C is a Hermitian self-dual code. Yan. So, Hermitian dual code siya kapag nasa-satisfy yung equation na yun. Pero yung pag Hermitian dual code, equal siya sa mismong code mismo. So, pwede natin, tawag natin dun sa kanya is Hermitian self-dual code. So, yung U natin dito is galing sa sa Galois field of order Q, and yung vector natin kanina, yung which is Hermitian Q quasi-abelian code is equal to 0, where all V is in C. Yung V natin dapat lahat nasa i-check niya yung every element dun sa C. So ayun. Yung particular na na class kasi inintroduce ko kanina yung H and G as finite abelian group. So ito yung abelian group na nasa paper. So yung Q cyclotomic class on Z of P raised to K and naka-multiply siya sa S. Naka-raise siya sa S. And let A is in H, where H is a finite abelian group, where GCD of Q and order H, is equal to 1. Then the Q cyclotomic class is given by S sub Q of A is equal to Q sub I times A, where I is 0, 1, 2 hanggang nu minus 1. So, where nu is the smallest positive integer that satisfies the condition, where the order of A, yung element natin in the subset H, is dividing Q raised to nu minus 1. So, magbibigay tayo ng example para mas malinaw to. So, let H is equal to Z sub 3 squared. So, Z sub 3 squared equivalent siya sa Z9. Q is 2 squared equal 4, then the 4 cyclotomic classes of Z3 squared is given by, ay, di ko na-edit yung ano. So, ayun. Dapat S sub 4H yun, sorry. 4 sub I, 4 raised to I times H, where I is from 0 to minus 1. So, hanapin natin yung least positive integer where magsasatisfy itong condition natin. So, since yung order ng abelian, yung finite abelian ano natin, yung iyon, z sub 9 is equal to 9. So, hanapin natin yung nu na mag-i-equal yung 9 dito na magdi-divide sa 4 raised to nu minus 1. So, yung nu minus equal to 3. So, since q is equal to 4 and nu is equal to 3, so, ayan, iniisa-isa natin yung elements ng h from 0 to, sorry, di ko na-edit siya sa dulo. Dapat 8 yun, sorry. From 0 to 8, so, multiply ng from I from 0, 1, 2, from all. Notice natin na may magkaparehong subset, I mean, magkaparehong Q cyclotomic classes. Ang Q cyclotomic classes kasi is equivalence relation. So, yung equivalence relation, nag-induce siya ng equivalence classes na nag-induce din siya ng partition. So, dito, nag-induce siya ng partition wherein yung 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, 6, 3, and 0. Ayan. So, yung remarks natin, EQ cyclotomic class SQ of A is of the form type 1 if S sub Q of A is equal to S sub Q of negative of or inverse of Q sub 0 times A, and of the form type 2 if and only if S sub Q of A is not equal to S sub Q of the inverse of Q sub 0 times A. So, given a non-zero element E in a ring, if E is equal to E squared, then E is said to be an idempotent of the ring. So, if for every idempotent element F satisfies the condition E times F equal to E, or E times F is equal to 0, then it is called primitive idempotent. Then the primitive idempotent in a ring can be obtained by getting the Q cyclotomic classes of H. So, yung mahalaga dito kasi yung pagkuha natin ng T cyclotomic classes of H, yun yung kinukuha natin kanina. So, yung pagkuha natin na yun, doon natin malalaman yung mga primitive idempotents, which is yung E natin. So, ito na yung mismong equation for this paper. So, every quasi-abelian codes can be written as, bali yung natin, code C is isomorphic to this, where yung R1 and R2 is yung R1 and may equation kasi na T is equal to R1 plus 2R2. So, dapat mag-satisfy yun para yun yung lalabas na number. And yung D sub J and D, yung isang D sub J, siya, linear codes din siya sa over the Galois field Q natin. So, by using several theorems, the decomposition of Hermitian dual code C is given by ito. So, binago lang natin yung yung mga yung each binago lang natin yung each element. Pero this time dumaan muna siya sa sa definition natin kanina na na Hermitian self dual code ganun. Ayan, yun yung natin. So, yung necessary and sufficient condition natin, yun yung natin, yung pag-convert natin ng quasi-abelian code to Hermitian self-dual code. So, yung some results ng paper na yon, so, ito yung ginamit niyang finite abelian group. So, yung K and S dito nga pala is integers. On the result of this paper, the decomposition of quasi-abelian code C based on yung sa kanina natin is ito. So, yung proof is nasa paper na. Medyo mahaba. So, hindi ko na in-include dito. So, so yung yung isa naman, yung pag-convert ng each quasi-abelian code naman is this. So, yun, andun din yung proof. So, hindi ko na sinama kasi mahaba. Medyo time consuming. So, isa pang example niya, H is isomorphic to Z of P raised to K times S raised to S where P is an odd prime. So, on the results, ganyan. So, ito yung nakuha niyong results. Bale, conditional equation siya. So, if no sub P is odd and ayun, yung yan, if P is even, yun yung sa taas yung equation. Then sa baba naman yung yung no sub P is even and sa P is odd. Ayan. So, ayun naman, yung decomposition naman niya, yung pag-convert naman siya sa sa H quasi-abelian code is this. Halos same lang din, kaso yung, yun nga, yung every, is, ayun. So, ayun. So, ito yung references. So, okay. Thank you.
So thank you, Gio, for that presentation. So are there any questions? I have a question for Gio. So anong possible na applications nung pinresent mo kanina?
Kasi yung linear code, ginagamit siya for kasi di ba sa signal meron tayong noise. So inevitable naman siya, nasa environment natin yung noise. So yung linear code, siya yung nagko-correct dun sa sa signal natin, parang siya yung parang corrector kasi di ba meron tayong mga noise ganun. Nababago yung signal natin. So yun nga yung yun yung taga-correct ng ng signal sa receiving and channels.
Okay, so thank you. Are there any more questions? Sa YouTube, wala namang nagtatanong. Sa chat, wala din. Okay, so I think wala nang nagtatanong. So, okay. So, thank you, Gio, for your presentation. And now, we go to Sir Mamplata.
All right, that ends our presentation for today. So thank you everyone for watching the presentation of these students. I would like to commend all those speakers for their very informative presentation. Congrats. So just an announcement on November 16, we will be having the presentation of these students for their research proposal, but this will be a closed door presentation. So for anyone who would like to attend that presentation, please send us a message for the details of this presentation. So again, thank you very much. Bye.